Hi, welcome to the Leadership Institute's webinar, live inside the Beltway. My name is Paulo Sibaja, Director of Coalitions here at LI. Very happy you have joined me today. One of the things that I often get told when we travel the road on behalf of the Leadership Institute is that even though our values and our messaging is right, sometimes we fail at actually communicating even more effectively. So today's topic is a very important topic. It's called strategic messaging with a mission. Starts with a mission. And who better than discuss that topic? Robert McFarland. Thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Robert is actually the president of McFarland Messaging LLC. It is a strategic communications consultancy, and they do a lot of work with nonprofits. Robert has had 18 years of experience, so I think we got the right person to discuss that with us today. He's worked in board development, communications, fundraising for Christian ministries, and he's also done conservative public policy organizations. Now, Robert, I found out you are married to your best friend who's a fellow baseball fan.
That's right.
And that you have raised your 6 children, homeschooled your 6 children just right outside of D.C.
That's right.
So, you know, the biggest question we have for you today is, who is your favorite baseball team?
Well, I have to say that unfortunately we have a house divided. We've got Braves fans and Nats fans in our house, so forgive us for actually having a intra-divisional rivalry here. So anyway, sorry to disappoint you guys.
That's fantastic. Well, this is kind of a bittersweet moment for me. This will be the last webinar I will be hosting as an employee here at the Leadership Institute. So I want to tell everyone, thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure hosting these throughout my time here at the Leadership Institute. I don't want to take too much time because it is an important topic, but I do have some housekeeping I must get out of the way. If you have any questions, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask those questions. Number one, you can send us an email live@leadershipinstitute.org. You'll find it here on the screen. You can certainly tweet, and we encourage you to do that. Use the webinar hashtag LIWebinar, very important, and tag the Leadership Institute, Leadership INST, tag myself at Paulo Sibaja, and also tag Robert at Robert McFarland. And the way that you spell Robert's last name is McFarland. So tag us all so we can get those questions, very important questions you want answered. Without further ado, Robert, why don't we just go ahead and get started?
Well, thanks. Appreciate that so much. And glad you can be with us here today. And we'll be talking, as Paulo said, about how strategic messaging starts with mission. And we're going to be talking about these topics. Specifically, we're going to talk about how to formalize your competitive advantage, and how to realize your mission, and finally, how to optimize your story. But let me start with a question. What's the future for your nonprofit? I mean, if you're thinking about starting one as well, what does that look like for you right now? You've got to realize that we have a very competitive environment for you to be launching your nonprofit or actually working in your nonprofit right now. You may be aware that on Capitol Hill, we have currently a debate going on about whether or not the charitable deduction should be going away. Given the fact that we've got bipartisan support right now to keep it, I guess it's going to stick around for a little while. But given the fact that we know the government has an insatiable desire to spend, we know that its days could be numbered. And so therefore, you have to think about how that would impact your donors. How would your donors be impacted if the charitable deduction would go away? Another thing you need to consider if you're starting up a nonprofit is there are no more nonprofits now than there have ever been. Given the fact that just 15 years ago, there were 50% fewer nonprofits. That's right. There are 50%, as in 50% more nonprofits today than there were just 15, as in 15 years ago. That's a lot of competition you have out there in terms of attention span for you to be able to cut through the clutter for. So you need to know, how strong is your message? How exactly prepared are you to be able to get your message across to people who would be potentially like-minded with you? So in order to be able to do that, you need to formalize your competitive advantage. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And in formalizing your competitive advantage, we're talking about developing your mission statement. Yes, it's that simple. You need to be able to identify and define what is your mission. And in terms of your mission statement, it's really talking about where you're going. And slightly similar to that is your vision statement. What will it look like when you get there? Ultimately, what we need you to be able to define is Why do you do what you do? That's the important question. And let's explore that a little bit more. If you haven't read the book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, you really need to. It's a fabulous read, and it really helps you understand what is going on with why. Why is the word why so important in this lexicon? In fact, let's take some time now to read this statement by Simon Sinek in the introduction into his book. Most companies have no clue why their customers are their customers. This is a fascinating realization. If companies don't know why their customers are their customers, odds are good that they don't know why their employees are their employees either. Now let's think about that. Given the fact that for-profit companies who rely on making a profit to support their efforts don't know why their customers are their customers, well, obviously this is going to apply to nonprofit organizations as well. If we don't understand why our donors are our donors, if we don't understand why our employees are coming to work for us, how are we going to be able to promote our organization effectively? So therefore, you need to be able to communicate why in your mission statement. So first of all, you need to be able to identify your mission. You need to identify why and where are you going. And related to that, not only where are you going, but really, why should anybody care? You have to be able to explain that, because that, encapsulated in your mission statement, is going to be your best tool. It's going to be your best tool for a variety of reasons. One, it's going to become your best marketing tool. And what I mean by that, it's going to help draw the people to you who will be able to help you get accomplished what you want to get accomplished. In addition, it's going to be your best motivating tool. It's going to be your best tool in order for you to be able to help your employees, help your donors realize why they need to continue to be engaged even when they've already given. They've already put in their 40-hour week. They've already given you a contribution recently. Why should they give to you again when the times are going so well? This is going to be a helpful thing for you to be able to bring out and help them be reminded why they should be contributing even more. And it's going to be your best morale building tool. When the chips are down, when times are tough, you need to be able to pull out that trump card to remind them this is why they came to you to begin with. This is why they need to be involved with you now to be able to bring things forward even when things are not looking so good. But in order for us to really understand vision and mission, we need to understand what's the distinction between the two. In terms of vision, that is slightly different from mission in that as we said earlier, it's how will you know when you get there? What will it look like? How do you want to change the future? And how do you want to make an impact? And specifically, what will it look like when you're all done accomplishing your mission? That's what vision looks like as opposed to mission. And some people may think, well, why in the world do we really need to have a defined mission statement, something that's encapsulating what we do? Can I just have an understanding of what I want to do? Can I just have like a long paragraph or a couple-page summary? No, you need to have a defined, encapsulated mission statement to be able to define who you are and where you're going. Because you have to articulate what you're all about very succinctly. And this is what's going to help you to be able to bring others to you and help them understand how they can be part of what you're doing. Because really when it comes down to it, other people want to be inspired. They want to be involved in something larger than themselves. I mean, it's great for us all to be able to go to work and pay our bills and take kids to Little League, and that's all important. But people really want to be involved in doing something beyond themselves, something that's going to have lasting value beyond their lifetimes. So you need to give them a reason for why they should be engaged in what you're doing. And finally, if you're not helping them solve a big enough problem, why in the world should they be engaged in doing what you're doing?
So, Robert, a question for you here.
Sure.
Obviously, you talked about the difference between a vision statement and a mission statement.
Yeah.
A vision might be something more elaborate. How short or how long should a mission statement be?
I would recommend one sentence. I mean, some people might make it a little bit longer, like a couple sentences, but I think a one tightly worded sentence can be really helpful in terms of being able to define what your mission statement should be like. And actually, I'll be talking about that a little bit later.
So It must fit on a on a tweet, right?
Absolutely. I highly recommend. If your mission statement can't fit in a tweet, it's too long.
It's too long.
So, well, actually, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Because what I've got here is we've already talked about how we need to formalize our competitive advantage. Well, let's talk about now how we need to realize our mission. And what I mean by realizing our mission is you need to make it real. You need to make it so that people can really taste it, touch it, feel it, see it, and so they can be part of what you're doing. And what I mean by, and we'll look at this in 4 different ways. In terms of evaluating your mission statement in that context, you want to be able to, 1, make it bold. 2, make it vivid. 3, make it clear. And finally, 4, make it brief. Well, let's look at those 4 areas in turn. Well, what does bold look like? Well, first of all, bold is bordering on the outrageous. And what I mean by that is you want it to be something that will attract attention. Because if you don't have something that's going to have the power to draw people to you, how are you going to cut through the clutter? So in other words, bold is not playing it safe, and bold is not saying what everybody else is saying. You need to carve out your own distinct voice so that people will understand why you're different and why you should be supported in this endeavor. Secondly, you want to make it vivid. And vivid, it produces a strong impression. It evokes a distinct mental image. And it literally infuses life. It inspires people to become better than they are and larger than they are. And so vivid can't use words that are bland or typical or especially lifeless, because that's not going to help you be able to convey what you're trying to do. Next, clear is something that's going to show your followers where you're going. It's got to explain this in a way that they can really grab hold of it. And it needs to create alignment so that people can see what needs to transpire in order for it to be achieved. And finally, it needs to help you make decisions. You need to be able to evaluate options between 2 different potential avenues and understand which one will achieve your mission more readily. And then, obviously, then clear is not going to be ambiguous. It's certainly not unfocused, and oh my goodness, you cannot let it be incoherent, or you've just ruined your opportunity to be able to convey your message. And in terms of brief, as Paulo and I were just talking about, you need to make it concise. And you want to be able to use the fewest number of words possible so that it can be portable. And what do I mean by portable? I mean, you need to be able to carry it around in your head. And because if your mission statement is rambling or if it's not easily memorizable, then you can't take it with you. Well, along those lines, let me ask you a question. If I asked you to recite your mission statement from memory without looking at your website, would you be able to do it? And I would be surprised if many people would be able to answer this question in the affirmative, because this is one of those areas that people have a difficult time doing, is memorizing their mission statements and being able to then recount them later. So I would say that that's going to be something that you need to be doing. If you're the leader of your organization, you have to have it committed to memory, and you need to have it short enough so that people can commit it to memory who are on your team. Because I tell you, if staff can't memorize it, no one's going to memorize it. So, well, now
I want to take this
yes,
pause,
yes, please.
Just to remind folks that they can send us questions. You can send us questions 3 different ways. Send us a tweet. Make sure you tag #LIWebinar @LeadershipINST, Robert McFarland, and also myself, Paulo Sibaja, so we can get those questions answered. You can also send us an email, live, that's LIVE, @leadershipinstitute.org. And I know I said 3, there's really only 2, so make sure you send those questions in. Robert, go ahead.
Thanks. Well, let's take a look now at what a good mission statement would look like. And even if you're not a fan of ATR, and I'm sure you probably are, this is a great statement. And I pulled this off their website, and even if they wouldn't call it necessarily their mission statement, it really functions very well as one. Well, let's look at it. Americans for Tax Reform opposes all tax increases as a matter of principle. Wow. Okay, let's look at this. They oppose all tax increases. Well, that sounds pretty bold. Doesn't sound like any of the Washington speak we have here in D.C. It's not a nuanced position. It's very direct, very bold. Also, it's vivid. They say they oppose all tax increases as a matter of principle. Oh, Well, that evokes a distinct mental image. Also, it's clear. Well, what part of all do you not understand? I mean, that's pretty clear. And then finally, it's brief. 13 words, they encapsulate everything. So there you go. It fits inside the tweet right there.
It does fit inside a tweet.
So, and this is what I would say would be a bad example of a mission statement. Now, I don't mean to step on the toes of any Office fans out there, but I know Dunder Mifflin is the fictitious company that's involved in the TV show The Office. And clearly this is a parody of a mission statement because we know so many organizations that really fail to have their missions adequately represented and just ramble on and don't really describe what they're trying to do. But this one I think is just classic. So let me read this to you all right now. Dunder Mifflin Incorporated provides its customers quality office and information technology products, furniture, printing values, and the expertise required for making informed buying decisions. We provide our products and services with a dedication to the highest degree of integrity and quality of customer satisfaction, developing long-term professional relationships with employees that develop pride, creating a stable working environment and company spirit.
Wow, you lost me at Incorporated provides.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, let's look at this. Okay, and the standard that we talked about before, the 4 different components, okay. Is it bold? Hardly. This sounds like everybody else. It sounds like you're trying to be all things to all people, so it's certainly not going to draw anybody to you. And then in terms of being vivid, I don't see any distinct mental images here. This is just not bringing anything for me here. In terms of clear, like you said, it lost me after Incorporated. Yeah. I just can't follow it beyond there. And brief, oh, come on, give me a break. I mean, that is just, it's the biggest rambling joke we've seen. So,
well,
anyway.
you know, in D.C., this might be considered brief, right?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, exactly. I think somebody from D.C. might have been their advisor in developing this or something like that. But, well, anyway, so far we've gone through how we need to formalize our mission statement. We've talked about how we need to realize our mission. And now let's talk about how we can optimize our story. So, in terms of optimizing your story, you need to identify 3 different things. You need to look at what does your customer want. I mean, you need to understand them and be able to define what is it that's important to them. Secondly, you need to identify what kind of impact you can make. And not what kind of you hoped you maybe someday possibly might be able to get done. But no, what can you really accomplish? And then thirdly, what is nobody else doing? How can you uniquely carve out a niche for yourself in this whole nonprofit community world? So let's look at each of these in turn. So who are your customers? And you need to look at that in both areas of your customers. And when I say customers, I mean your target audiences, the people you're trying to reach here. And your primary target audiences are those whose lives are being touched. Like y'all who are watching the webinar right now. I mean, y'all would be considered part of the primary target audience of the Leadership Institute. Now, in terms of a secondary target audience, we're talking about donors, volunteers, employees, people who are helping the Leadership Institute get the message across, helping them accomplish their mission. And maybe some of y'all watching this right now actually are donors, maybe even employees or volunteers for the Leadership Institute, and good on you for doing so. But those are the customers we're talking about right now. Well, we need to look at then what is important to the customer. Okay, what in the primary target audience, why have they gravitated to you? Okay, what's important to them? What do they expect from you? What do they want to see you do? And then in terms of your secondary target audience, you need to find out what are they most passionate about? I mean, what makes them tick? How can you increase their involvement? How can you get them to scale up in terms of what their commitment has been? So, and this is important because this is going to impact the kind of impact that you can have. And that will be determined by how well you focus. How well you focus on these areas. 1, your mission statement. Formalizing your competitive advantage. Understanding what is encapsulating what it is you're trying to do so you can really be able to reach the people you're trying to reach. And secondly, your target audience. Realizing your mission so that they go be able to take hold of it and taste it and be able to see how they can fit into it and be part of your whole mission.
Robert, we have a question from a viewer. They wanted to know if you can expound a little bit. I know you briefly touched on it at the beginning of the presentation, exactly how you can formalize your competitive advantage.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's a process in that. I mean, and really what you need to do when you're doing that is you got to dig deep. and find out who are you, what are you really trying to accomplish. And a lot of that's going to be dependent upon your core values. We're not really getting into that so much here, so you really have to find out who you are and your core values. And if you're going to do that, there's probably a lot of different resources you could go to online to find sample mission statements, but ultimately it's got to fit you. It's got to fit your goals, it's got to fit your organization. And so many times people can't do this on their own. They need to have a facilitator come in and help them really understand how this all works. I mean, I work with clients in terms of helping them be able to position their brand and do the whole discovery process, planning, et cetera. And it takes 3 days. I mean, it takes time because you got to dig deep and really find out what your calling is and how you can actually be able to get that done.
Fantastic.
So, well,
by the way, I also want to point out, I'm assuming that your mission statement is helping nonprofit organizations harness the power of their vision to optimize their story. Is that the mission statement of McFarland
you
messaging?
You are quick. There you go.
It met those thresholds, all 4. I realized,
There you go. So, well now, hey, let's pull all this together. Okay, we've been talking about mission, we've been talking about target audience, we've been talking about impact. When you pull all those together, you're talking about your customer value proposition. Okay, this is important because what you're going to need to do here is you're going to need to be able to connect those customer insights that you have, how you understand your target audience, and can then compare them with the service benefits you provide through your mission. You've got to compare those to see really how what you're doing with your mission is really meeting the needs of your target audience, and then be able to compare the two and see what's the biggest benefit you provide. And then you need to be able to identify your reasons to believe. What is that impact that you're really be able to provide? And use that as a reason why you can, so you can justify that you can really accomplish what your mission is all about. Now let's take this even one step further. Let's take what you're going to do is take your customer value proposition and then transform it into your unique selling proposition. Okay, it's slightly different, but much more impactful. Your unique selling proposition talks a lot about what we just did, and the fact that we're identifying what your target audience wants. We're also talking about what benefits you provide well. But the distinguishing feature here is the fact that you need to understand how you can be positioned uniquely. In other words, what are you doing that your competition is not? So let's combine all this into one sentence to help you understand how you can create your own USP. What does your target audience want that your nonprofit does well and others don't? Now let's take a look at what a good for-profit USP would look like. Now, many of you may be familiar with this. This is the original tagline that FedEx used when they had come out with their overnight delivery, and it's when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. It's a great USP. Fully describes what their target audience wanted, what FedEx did well, and even what others weren't doing at the time, or at least FedEx was able to implant into the mind of their customers that they were the only ones doing this. So this is a great USP, really illustrates the concept very well, and you can be able to see how this really benefited FedEx very well in positioning themselves in the market. Well, now let's look at what a good nonprofit USP would look like. And yes, here we are, back to ATR again, that this statement they have is so useful for not only a mission statement, it's also really good as a great USP. So, Americans for Tax Reform opposes all tax increases as a matter of principle. They've really understood what their target audience wants. Their target audience wants people to oppose all tax increases as a matter of principle. They also understand that they can do that well. And at least in the minds of their target audience, ATR has positioned themselves to be showing themselves as the only ones who apparently are doing this, at least in the minds of their target audience. So, well, let's recap. We've talked so far today about formalizing our competitive advantage. Talked about how you need to define and know why you do what you do in terms of your mission. And then you need to realize that mission. You need to be able to communicate it. You need to articulate it in a way that is bold and vivid and clear and brief. And then finally, you need to be able to optimize your story. You need to be able to explain and understand what does your target audience want. And then how can you show the impact that you make. And then finally, what can your nonprofit do uniquely that others are not?
We have a question for someone that's following us on Twitter that said, once a mission statement is defined, how can I relate it to my customers in order to make my statement successful? I'm assuming because there are customers in this involved, it might be outside of the realm of nonprofits, or it might be a nonprofit trying to sell something to an audience. So how can I relate it to my customers, I'm assuming the mission statement, to make my statement successful?
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to understand, what does your customer want? Okay, like we talked about that before. And then identifying within your mission statement, okay, what are the service benefits that you can provide that would then meet that need? Okay, and then from there, you really have to identify, okay, what's the proof? What is the impact that you can show that you make that would then be reasons to believe that you can do that and meet that need within your customers?
We also have another question from a viewer. They wanted to know, is the mission statement something that's done by the president of the organization? Is it something that's done by a board? Or who usually sets the mission statement and also the vision for an organization?
Well, given the fact that the governing body of an organization is the board, they have to be the ones to buy off of it.
Okay.
So usually what I like to do is I like to work with the board and work through that process with them, because usually the CEO, they may help manage the board in some capacity, but nonetheless, the board is the one who's going to be in charge of the organization and needs to be the one setting the tone.
We also had, all these questions are coming in all of a sudden, which is fantastic. We want to take them. I want to make sure to remind folks, if you do have a question, it's 2 methods, not 3. 2 methods of asking questions. You can send us an email, live@leadershipinstitute.org, or tweet using the hashtag LIWebinar. You can also make sure to tag the Leadership Institute in that tweet, @LeadershipINST. Also tag me, so I make sure to ask those questions at Paulo Sibaja. And of course, make sure you tag Robert McFarland. So the question was, well, it says mission statements are awesome. Good to know. Mission statements are awesome. How do you go about really finding more mission statements that would be good examples and mission statements that would be bad examples? Is there a resource that you recommend? Yeah,
there's a lot of places you can go online. You just Google that. I mean, there are oodles and oodles of mission statements that you can find online. But really, I think you need to be able to evaluate them appropriately. Like we said, look for bold, look for vivid, look for clear, look for brief. Just because if they don't have power in themselves, then they're really not going to be valuable to use.
We also have another one. In a campaign setting, it might be a little different. Obviously, you have taglines. You know, Barack Obama forward in 2012, hope and change in 2008, Mitt Romney, McCain, we really don't remember what theirs were. But for a campaign setting, it might be a little different than a nonprofit. How do you go about creating a mission statement? And does one create a mission statement for a campaign setting or a candidate?
Well, I think that really you're going to still have, I think maybe it's a better way to look at it in terms of a USP. Okay, if you're going to be looking at it in the context of what you provide well, what can you do, and what's your why? Okay, I think that's something you can bring out even still. Why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, as a candidate. Okay, and then identifying, okay, these are the things that I plan to be able to accomplish. This is what it's going to mean to my customers, the voters in my district, etc. And then be able to explain. Then again, it's the why they should be able to believe me when I say that. What are the points of credibility that you can be able to discuss?
Wonderful. Well, we are going to go ahead and cap it there. We got some really good questions asked by folks. Are there any last parting points you'd like, advice for our viewers on really making sure? I mean, you hit the nail on the head with what makes a good mission statement and developing that vision. Any parting words?
Well, I certainly hope that this is helpful to the conservative movement, because I think that we all know that the conservative movement needs to have better technology, better messaging to be able to carry it forward and be able to win the day. It's amazing when you were talking about being able to memorize the mission. I think of the Leadership Institute, and when we do travel, we usually have to say what the mission of the Leadership Institute is. And I'm glad they must have heard you back in the day, because it is easy to remember, and I do remember it. And I would hate it to be convoluted, confusing, and everything that it's not supposed to be. So, Robert, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come here and share with us and be the last guest
that I host for this webinar.
Well, it's a pleasure.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you so
that.
much for all you've done here.
Thank you. I do want to point out a few other things. If you want to continue with your training, we do have a public relations school coming up here at the Leadership Institute. It's a 3-evening course. It's fantastic. I strongly recommend it. That is June 16th through the 18th. Again, that is June 16th, 1/6 through the 18th, 1/8. 3 evenings of training, public relations school. You can find more information on our website, leadershipinstitute.org. Make sure you click on trainings and you will find everything, how much it costs, where it's going to be held, what kind of topics will be covered. Also, we do have another webinar coming right up. Obviously, it would be May 28th, 3 p.m., same time, May 28th at 3 p.m. And that one is called Networking Your Way to the Top. Gosh, I would have loved to have been here for that one. Asked a bunch of questions on how to network your way to the top. But again, that's May 28th at 3 p.m. And so I want to leave you with a quote. Governor Huckabee was addressing a crowd of conservatives in the state of Iowa, and he told them, quote, "Would you be that someone? Would you do that something? Let's make sure we don't lose this great land of ours, given to us by God, entrusted to us because we have a responsibility to pass it on much better than we found it." And so, as I sign off, I want to ask you that same question. Will you be that someone? And will you do that something? Let's make sure we don't lose this great land of ours. So thank you very much. I'm Paulo Sibaja, live inside from the Beltway, Leadership Institute. Thank you.